Good day, Bill. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very excited to have Bill Zhu, who is the CEO and president of Pokei, here with us today. I am Vinod Joseph, an investor at Samsung Next, and we have recently invested in their seed round and would love to engage on a technical discussion with them today.
Great. Thanks for
Bill,
having
would
me.
you like to give a quick snapshot on Pokei today?
Yeah, of course. Pokei is a foundation agent company where we build AI agentic workflows across any tools, any enterprise, any developers across the world, with extremely high accuracy compared to any of the off-the-shelf models out there, and to make sure that any workflows can be executed smoothly without any hiccups in the middle, and make sure that any developers and enterprise can really delegate themselves with powerful agentic tools so that they don't have to do redundant work.
Wow, great. We're all excited to have Pokey in our lives, I guess. You said that the AI world has solved the generation problem, but no one has solved the execution problem in our past discussions. Can you break down to our users what this means by execution gap and why it represents such a critical challenge in the enterprise AI deployments?
Yeah, so one of the key, I guess, tricky spot here is we've seen foundation models that's being built by OpenAI, Anthropic, and so on and so forth to be able to like solve really strong, text generation, image generation, video generation, and they're also starting to have very strong tool usage capabilities. But then when you look deeper, they actually sort of start to fall apart when you actually have very customized tools. So what do I mean by customized tools? They're tools that are built by enterprise developers in-house. They might not have the perfect parameter setup. They might have hundreds of parameters as inputs. Among them, 10% of them might be like separate IDs that the model have never seen before in its training stage. And then also, in addition to that, you can have thousands, if not tens of thousands of tools in the repertoire of the agent that it can choose from. So as an example, like one of the unicorns that we are actually working with, they have more than 2,000 workflows that they actually manually built internally, and more than 10,000 different tools they can use internally. That's not to mention the external tools they can use. So if you look at that, that's basically, more than enough context, sorry, more context than that's allowed for all the LLMs out there. So for 10,000 tools, if each of them takes like, 500 tokens, that's 5 million tokens to start with. And then there's no model out there that can even take that thing, and not to mention accuracy. So the key problem we're trying to solve today is to be able to like really execute with any tools that's being provided, just like human. Like if you look at how humans execute on tasks, you give them this hammer versus that hammer, you'll be able to do anything with like just a hammer. So we want to have agents and foundation models that have very strong generalization capabilities to go from, standard off-the-shelf APIs and tools into customized, very complex workflows and tools to be able to reach like 95, 99% accuracy in all of these workflows.
Wow, great work. I'd love to have that hammer in my life as well. So your platform claims to outperform, like what you said, GPT-4o, Claude, Gemini in function calling, while scaling for an unicorn that you did not mention, but you support tens of thousands of tools, 10,000 tools, I guess. What technical breakthroughs in reinforcement learning approach enable this level of performance and scale?
Yeah, so we all start from RL. Like I think when I started fundraising last year, it was a thing. Like investors were saying, like, okay, what is RL? What is like RL agent even? Now after this year, reinforcement is the hot potato on stage. So it all comes from post training basically. It used to be the case where 90% of the training process happens in supervised fine tuning and supervised pre-training, and then you have 10% of the process happening in post-training, which is RLHF. And then recently, there has been a rise of reinforcement learning from verifiable reward, which is basically build a simulator that has human rules in it. And then you can basically run an LLM indefinitely with the simulator and then be able to like keep training with it. so that it can actually do really well on math. You've seen it from OpenAI and Gemini's IMO performance. There's like a lot of like coding capabilities we've seen from ROVR. In fact, it's also happening to physics, chemistry, biology as well. There's a lot of amazing work happening there. But then one of the things that still not being addressed is what if there's non-verifiable rewards in the system? And then in tool usage, a lot of them are like that. So if you look at, doing like a deep research, just as a classic example of like tool usage and then agentic experience, you can't really say, okay, I have a verifiable system on a document, a report, right? A report is like, 10 pages long. What kind of verification system you can build for that? So that gives rise to RLAIF, meaning reinforcement from AI feedback. Sometimes you use LMs as a feedback tool. Sometimes you use a customized reward model that's not trained from human preference data as a reward tool. The main difference between those and the class, say RLHF, is that it's trained so that the feedback model or the reward model from the world, we can almost think of it as a world model for the LMs, is very generalizable. It can sort of adapt to all kind of scenarios that you haven't seen before. And that's what gives rise to Poke's capabilities. In the early stage of Pokei, we actually have separate RL models from the language model so that the RL model is only focusing on tool usage. And then there's LM that's like really good at, doing sort of language tasks, understand user intent, being able to generate stuff. And then recently we have been trying to merge these two with very aggressive post training with RLAIF with a little bit more grounding. Of course, we don't want the models to hallucinate. And then we have achieved great results. In fact, by the time this is live, we already have an open source 7 billion parameter deep research model that's the best in the market, state of the art, beat all of the other models in HLE, browser comp, and also Gaia. So we're really excited to see where the vision of like having reinforcement to take the center stage of doing reasoning, being able to use the tools in long sequence tasks to become the core, AI sort of like competence in the near future for both developers and also enterprise.
Wow, great work. Coming from Meta, where you led advanced reinforcement learning for billions of users at that scale, you did tell us about the research, new things, RLAIF, and things that could be new from what you use then. But still, when you're moving from research grade systems to production scale for Pokey towards enterprises, what is that you would like to inform users on the lessons that you've learned and how do they incorporate this?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So we've seen reinforcement learning field sort of progress after AlphaGo. So AlphaGo was the last hype of reinforcement learning before RHF, RLVR, and so on and so forth. There was like a very big period of vacancy of RL from 2018 when Mu0 roughly came out at that time to 2022 where the first InstructGPT came out. So there's a big gap in that period. And then during that gap period, there's a lot of research that's happening, both from things that we're doing at Meta and also like things that happen in academia. And at that point, like a lot of people are focusing on just the theoretical side of things. And then there's a lot of algorithms that are great. But then turns out, if you look at today's world, um, if it's LM, it's just on policy reinforcement learning, and actually the most basic ones. And if you look at like more advanced, like late last stage, Alpha Zero, Mu Zero type of models, if you want to improve on them, there's still off policy RL, like the classic off policy algorithms with the best sort of exploration capabilities. So they haven't changed too much. So there's a lot of advancement that's happening from the theoretical side that we also see from when I was working at Meta, but then a lot of them are not sort of translated to actual production. So one thing I do sort of tell a lot of my friends who are working on RL, especially during academia, is like do take a look at sort of production use cases and how do you apply these, and then see if there's like unknown pitfalls that you didn't know when you're making the assumptions when you're deriving these theories. Um, there's a lot of stuff happening. Like for example, the first time when LM RHF came out, people were like, okay, we can like slap on really complex cryptics so that we can do like very complex RHF algorithm without policy learning. But then it turns out it doesn't work out because, there's a bias that's being induced during off policy learning. It's not easily doable. That's still the hope, by the way, but existing algorithms that we have seen that does great things in simulators doesn't really translate into these long horizon real life tasks. So there's a lot of things to be done, almost reinventing the wheel on a lot of the RL algorithms we've seen in the last decade to really sort of embrace compute, embrace long horizon tasks, embrace data in today's AI world with RL.
Wow, great. All of us are now moving to the agentic world, right? Recent surveys, including the Gartner survey, shows that more than 99% of the enterprises are exploring or want to deploy AI agents. However, these companies are actually aren't ready, agent ready in terms of their infrastructure capabilities. So how do work with these companies, and what specific technical and organizational preparations do these enterprises need to make before deploying production level AI agents that you want to work with?
Yeah, I'll give you a shocking fact. Like almost no traditional industry companies, or even like the last generation of tech companies, or even a lot of these like very technically savvy hedge funds are ready for the AI agentic world revolution. The reason is the last generation of products are being built, or the systems are being built such that you expose as much information as possible in these connections, endpoints, APIs, and so on and so forth. And that's not how AI works. So in today's LLMs, they're not connected to um, proprietary information. They're connected to common sense information. So there are two routes that people are taking in those. One route is through, you know, rebuilding the tool set. That's what we're building for developers. Meaning that there's so many tools out there, you can wrap it up so that they become AI native tools, and then AI can very easily use them through our foundation models, no matter how many tools are out there. That's one route. The other route is you actually have to train your agent to be able to like recognize different IDs, different parameters in your internal system, and then being able to like sort of use it. Now, there are two different routes, and we are sort of like helping our customers on both routes. But in fact, like the today's sort of landscape of enterprises, they neither have AI native tools, nor they have the infrastructure needed to fine tune or post train models to work for these like complex agentic workflows. So you have to build them. There's a huge opportunity out there to build training infrastructure that's really easy plug and use, and then also being able to like regenerate completely automatically with AI from classic, legacy type of tool sets with hundreds of parameters in each functions into canonical, easy to use, AI understandable tool set that are really servicing like sort of classic enterprise workflows. So I think there's a huge opportunity over here, and that's why I almost think there's so many companies, but it still is a almost empty market because no one's like really tackling it from end to end. And I think it's a great market to enter into.
Wow. You're working with design partners and have partnerships with like Google enterprise deployments, right? So what are the common challenges you're seeing when you navigate these enterprises from pilot projects, say POCs, to production scale automation?
Yeah, it's actually a tricky question. So I was having a conversation with one of the C-suite people at one of the public companies, and they were saying, okay, it used to be when you actually do enterprise sales, you do POC and it becomes completely repeatable motion afterwards. It's basically you do a like small proof of concept, and then is the whole thing is a similar product when you deploy, and then you basically sort of copy paste across a lot of things, and then get things done. Now, if you do proof of concept, it almost become like a demo-ish thing, because let's say they have 200 workflows, 2,000 workflows. And then let's say they have like 1,000 tools or even 2,000 tools. Then what happens effectively is you can only build a small, like verticalized sector of these tools into AI native workflows as a proof of concept. As you push into like more workflows, more diverse set of use cases, there will be like a lot more things to be built up and integrated and then retrained so that things can be fully integrated. So we're trying to like, automate this entire process. I think eventually we need a system that goes from these proof of concept AI workflows into like a full enterprise-wide workflows that takes in any tools from enterprises. And then that needs to be automated. Otherwise, every single company sort of like gets stuck between proof of concept into the full scale contract. And then it used to be like, once you get into proof of concept, people like it. If it takes like 2, 3 months to get things done, now it becomes like, okay, after proof of concept, I restart the process. Then it's gonna take another 6 months, 8 months to get things done. It's not going to be acceptable. And that's something that we're building to make sure that um, we ourselves or developers don't have to go through this.
Wow, that's going to keep you busy a lot here in this world. So as these enterprises transition to multi-agent systems, tools and workflows, the challenges amplify because you may then Pokey needs to handle the coordination between these agents, set up security and governance frameworks for big enterprises. Like, can you just help us understand for an ideal customer that you have, how do you help them manage these multiple autonomous agents across their systems?
Yeah. Um, so we don't really deem today's multi-agent system as multi-agent because there's always an orchestrator that actually tells you what to do in enterprise. So enterprise system is very different from, in the consumer world, you will actually eventually have a truly multi-agent sort of scenario. Let me explain like what does truly multi-agent means. Truly multi-agent systems, like usually we think about it from like the academic point of view, you have multiple agents that's working together, and there's not like a leader that says, you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. If you have a leader, that becomes almost like a single agent hierarchical system where this agent is able to see everyone's capability and then plan the whole thing out, and then everyone else is just like executing it. And there's no reason to not expose the capability of these like sub agents into the parent agent when we're in enterprise because it's all owned by the enterprise itself, right? So when we're dealing with, we're trying to like sort of simplify everything as much as possible so that these like sort of like sub agents that's existing they have built becomes just like tools. And then there's an orchestrator that basically sort of plans out the whole thing and then knows how information flows from one tool to the other. Doesn't matter if it's agent or tools or whatever. Then basically streamline the workflow and make sure that it has high rate of success. Um, so from my perspective, the multi-agent system really becomes like super complex when you're talking about like consumer-oriented systems where you as a customer actually sort of have to dispatch tasks to, hundreds of agents that are, working together without knowing there is an orchestrator. So what could happen there is you have like three tasks that are related to each other. Maybe let's say shopping is a good example where you might need to do research on specific topic of like your next shopping task, and then there are product or two you may have to get it from Amazon, and then you have payments. Then these three agents have to talk to each other. It's like, okay, I say I want shopping, and then Amazon agent says, okay, I don't know what exactly you like, and then it dispatches to the research agent, and the research agent does something and come back to the Amazon agent, and the Amazon say, oh, I've received it. Okay, here are some products. Do you like this? And the user click yes, and then somehow like it sort of dispatch another request to the payment agent, and the payment agent comes back. So there's no like orchestrator agent, right? It's like all coming back and forth between different agents. That's when things really get complicated. And I think we're in the early stage of doing that because there's no algorithm that can really predict, like, if I train this long enough, I can make sure that the other party is giving me the right response, right? So over there, it's all non-stationary and it's really complex.
Wow. So if you have to say deep down on a e-commerce or a shopping agent, right? Can you share what a lead customer of yours could see as a potential value of this automation and the ROI? towards deploying production-ready AI agents?
Um, I don't think we work on shopping agents actually a lot. So, but I can say something about like whether or not AI agents are valuable in the e-commerce world. Um, I honestly think for new startups, it's really hard. What does AI agents do today? I would think of AI agents as um, sort of sort of like a replicate of human labor that can take time or take efforts away from humans from doing complex stuff. And then usually there's one category of shopping. They're very purposeful, meaning that a user comes in, they just know what they want, they shop, and they're gone. The whole process takes, 5 to 10 minutes. And then you probably take that 5 to 10 minutes into like 1 to 2 minutes. And then what does that do? Like it doesn't really do too much as a user added value. There's another side of this equation, which is research oriented shopping, meaning I don't even know what I want. I just know that I have a need of something. What does something solve my problem? And then you have a deep research thing coming up. Okay, I have this need. How do I combine different tools, different like products so that I can solve your problem? And then I go to like a shopping page to like complete an entire shopping cart for you, and then you go payment. But then in these cases, people usually trust Google. People usually trust Amazon to do it. And then for new players to come in, you don't have enough like, inventory from Amazon, from Google to actually do this. And then you also don't have the endpoint from these players. And they are not going to pay you as well. So then where does your revenue come from? You have to have the user willing to spend more money to be able to like use your product, and then you sort of get access to Amazon and Google to help them shopping. It's a really hard business model, honestly. But from bigger enterprise, the experience I just talked about doing big research, like being able to combine different products to serve a need, and then put into a shopping cart and then sort of check out, that's actually very valuable. So I think these companies that's doing like e-commerce shopping agents, and if they're doing really well, I think they should do B2B almost, like trying to sell into like these retail businesses that has a great potential of like expanding, especially like big combination of stuff. For example, I would say like, if you're doing house renovation, there's a lot of combination of tools or products you have to buy altogether. Fashion business, there's a combination of different fashion, clothes, shoes, hats, and stuff you have to combine. Yeah, things like that. That would be like a great use case.
Point our listeners are very concerned about the agentic or the AI world as this will inevitably replace certain human roles, albeit creating new avenues and opportunities for other roles. So how do you, when you recommend your customers, how do you recommend those enterprise leaders to think about this workforce transformation and preparing the organizations for this shift? And, is it about productivity, value, or what do you really portray from
Yeah, so
Pokey?
so you'll be surprised that there's a lot of departments today. They're looking to add new employees, but adding new people isn't solving their problem. I can give you some classic examples, like for example, doing market research. Um, One of the example that people have asked us, okay, can we do like a deep research of my competitors and look at their entire like promotion history, and then be like know when they give me discounts, give like people discounts, and so I can like sort of compete with them. Like that process, if I have a human do it, it takes at least like a week, if not a month to do it. And then with Pokey, you just do it upfront. Like we have some integrations that's going to come up that can do all of that very quickly. Um, and then that's like, things that even if you add more people to, the current set of people in their marketing department or research department, it's not going to speed it up because you just need one person to put together a holistic research of like competitors, how to break down their strategy, and so on and so forth. You can't be like, okay, this person that's going to sit in, look at the product, and I'm going to break it down into like five different products, and then of competitor products, and then each other people are going to look into it in a separate format, and then try to put together again on this person. They're going to have all kind of different like styles. You have all different kind of like preferences on how they build together these reports, it's going to probably take longer time to build that thing than a single person. And then if you have a tool that's an AI that can actually put together the whole thing in a holistic format, you are solving that person's problem. And then that's basically a 10x employee. You're hiring probably nine more employees, but by not hiring people. And then these things are so what we call bottleneck projects. And these bottleneck projects are usually where AI agents really shine, and there's no concern of enterprises trying to like lay off people by buying these AI tools. There are cases where you can directly just hire AI as employees. And in these cases, there are concerns of like laying off people and then less jobs to be created. I think engineering jobs are classic examples of that. If you have like codec, you have cloud code that's running in your system, then a lot of like the basic level engineering jobs are honestly speaking like very dangerous. And I would really recommend like all the enterprises if they are trying to like really empower their employees, like trying to like ask them to be more creative, do more experiments, like create more value to their customers by having creative jobs. I do believe that every single engineer going into the future needs to have a little bit of PM sense. If they don't have a PM sense, then they're likely going to be kind of in a dangerous position when these coding agents get really good.
Thank you. Well, that's scary for most of our developers listening to this. But on a positive note, congrats again for receiving huge funding on your recently oversubscribed round. That shows clearly strong investor confidence in this AI agents and the great work you're doing, right?
Thank you so much.
So what does this signal? Yeah, thank you. What does this signal about the maturity of this market, the AI agent, the enterprise agentic market? And where do you see the biggest avenues for growth in this market as you scale Pokei AI and expand partnerships? Where do you
Yeah, there's a
think
lot.
the value would be? Yeah.
Yeah. Great. There are a lot of verticals, sectors that AI agent can really shine. The way we look at it is how much standardization you can do in a vertical that can be easily replicable to a lot of different companies in the same sector or same vertical. Because a lot of industries they're still in a very early stage. I can give an example because evolution is by SB10X in the Southeast Asia. I have classic example from Southeast Asia I can give. So it could be an interesting story to hear. Um, so in Southeast Asia, a lot of logistics companies are still in a very early fashion where they use pen and pencils to record like input and output cargoes from daily basis. And if you look at that, you have to build the whole thing from ground up, from recognition systems inside the warehouses, inputs and output cargoes, the like robotic RPA kind of systems, like looking at the cargoes coming in and out, and then being able to record all of that into like a spreadsheet, and then record it into like some sort of planning system that says, okay, if I have to dispatch some cargo, how much like additional sort of space I can sort of free up, and then there's more cargo can come in. Um, and then you'll be surprised how sort of like not caught up these industries are. And for these industries, it's really hard to break into because you have to build everything from the infrastructure layer to the actual software layer and then the AI layer. So these industries are really hard to replicate because everyone expects different things. And there's no standardization of process. But then if you look at finance, if you look at healthcare, if you look at software engineering, if you look at marketing, sales, they're all standardized. And then these departments are really easy to replicate your product, your AI initiatives and workflows and agents to enter into these markets. So I would definitely suggest like trying to tackle these like markets first where they're still very painful, but all the product out there, there's nothing like really solve their pain points yet. Everyone's like sort of jumping between different products at the moment. So I think it's a great opportunity to enter into the market and then try to do POCs and then like basically test run with enterprise and design partners, and then try to see if something sticks. Um, I would say that in today's market, there's no like winner takes all situation yet, because there's like a lot of opportunities out there, and then I think it's a great time to build AI startups.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill, for your insightful, in conversation here for our audience. It's amazing, the great work you've done. Thank you, and looking forward to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.